What's up, everybody? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Paul, the Canadian Snowman, back here once again with another awesome video. We're kind of going backwards a bit. I know we just did some World War II stuff, and now we're kind of like back to like the Crusade stuff, but I came across this video, and yeah, this is basically the battle from, Kingdom of Heaven. That's where I got this photo from the movie, and so I pretty much kind of know how it goes down. I'm kind of curious, I guess, to see the details and to see kind of how accurate that movie was compared to this battle. And I heard that Saladin, being a great leader and all that stuff, I wanted to kind of see him at his peak, and this is basically his greatest victory. Obviously, that's what it says. So, yeah, I'm very interested to kind of see how this goes down and I guess the details of it. So, yeah, I hope you guys like this too. I'd be jumping around from video to video. I don't know what I'm doing each day, but we're going to check this out. Yeah, let's jump into it. Oh man, what else is there to say? I don't know if you're first time watching me, definitely go check out the Crusades and stuff. That was really fun and cool. And this is basically taking place just before the Third Crusade, and so this is where Jerusalem falls. Obviously, this is, I know that. I mean, I know the outcome, so there's no surprises there. But whether the details about, I already said all that. But anyways, guys, please hit that like and subscribe button below. And let's jump into it. Dun, dun. Always a good time, always fun. There we go. 3, 2, 1, bam. Oh yeah, this is History March, because the last the Crusade, Third Crusade, and Fourth Crusade we did was Kings and Generals. So this is History March. The only second I watched Hannibal on History March, and that was an amazing series. But besides Hannibal, I haven't done anything yet. So this will be pretty exciting stuff. And yeah, I really like how History March does their thing. So so definitely check out their channel. I'm still looking forward to how that what History March does for this series. See if it's kind of similar or is it really different. I don't know. I warn you against shedding blood, indulging in it, and making a habit of it, for blood never sleeps. Okay. Saladin.
During the second half of the 12th century, a dramatic Muslim revival reaches its zenith under the command of Saladin Yusuf ibn Ayyub, a courageous and brilliant leader, known to contemporary Muslims as Al-Nasir, the Victorious, and to Europeans as Saladin. He seeks nothing less than to unite all Muslims between the Euphrates and the Nile against a common enemy.
Last question. I want to apologize ahead of time if I'm way off here. Is Genghis Khan, is that that's the same area, right? I'm trying to think of a map right now. He conquered basically the same area, right? Genghis Khan. I'm trying to remember what time period he was. I definitely eventually want to jump in, because that's a long series. So that's the only reason I haven't done Genghis Khan yet, is because it's a long series. But eventually I want to jump into that. But it's the same area, right? I remember. You guys can let me know in the comments.
Enemy.
History March.
In the late 11th century, the Fatimid Caliphate is in decline, and the Seljuk Empire is crumbling. In this period of Muslim weakness, the First Crusade strikes the Levant. Christian lords and knights impose institutions of Western Europe upon the social and political structures of the conquered lands. Their rule is relatively stable, largely thanks to Muslim disunity. But as the 12th century rolls on, less than 5 decades since European Crusaders arrived in the region, the Zengid dynasty rises to prominence in northern Levant. Under competent leadership of Imad ad-Din Zengi, they defeat the Crusaders and retake the city of Edessa in 1144, thus, in effect, provoking the Pope to call for the Second Crusade. Although Imad is assassinated 2 years later, in 1146, his son Nur ad-Din successfully continues the fight against the Crusaders until the Second Crusade eventually fizzles out, and he expands his father's realm over the years, bringing much-needed stability and prosperity to his people. It is during Nur ad-Din's reign that Saladin begins his rise to prominence.
Yeah, so it's basically like, the Christian, the Christians are almost like basically cut off from like the rest, of their people, who are obviously more up in the west, northwest over here, and it seems like they're very, isolated here. So it just seemed like a matter of time before, like, the kind of like the Muslims kind of took it over and like ran them out of town. And like they said, I guess there's a lot of squabbling. There wasn't a single leader. They weren't united. So, they were too worried about, I guess, each other to kind of worry about the Christians. And then I guess now kind of like they're kind of united, and now they want to, like, hey, like, Christians, you're in our land. We want to take it back, kind of thing. Kind of what I get here.
Saladin begins his rise to prominence. Born in 1137 in Tikrit, in modern-day Iraq, Saladin spends his formative years in Damascus. From a young age, he is educated in Greek philosophy, mathematics, poetry, astronomy, law, and above all, he becomes an ardent student of the Quran and theology. His upbringing is helped by members of his family who served as skillful diplomats and administrators, first in the Seljuk Empire and later for the Zengid dynasty. Growing up, Saladin's uncle Shikur and Nur ad-Din become his biggest role models. They instilled in him the principles of chivalry, piety, nobility, justice, humility, generosity, brotherhood, mercy and forgiveness, all of which would come to define Saladin's life and legacy. He joins the...
Damn, seems like very educated, and those are all like great traits to learn and everything, so wow, if you learn all that, man, things looking good.
All of which would come to define Saladin's life and legacy. He joins the military at the age of 14 and is ably trained by his uncle Shikur, a military commander in the Zengid army. A quick learner, Saladin soon impresses his mentor. His performance in early battles enables him to take on leading responsibilities in military campaigns, and over the years, he distinguishes himself through his bravery, military leadership, sharp intellect, and loyalty to his leaders. Saladin's star truly begins to rise in the 1160s, when Nur ad-Din intervenes in the affairs of the weakening Fatimid Caliphate, aiming to forestall Amalric's quest to expand the Kingdom of Jerusalem into Egypt. Recognized as a competent, trustworthy, and ambitious leader, in 1164, Saladin is sent to Egypt as part of the command structure of a Zengid army, commanded by his uncle Shikur. He becomes an integral part of several campaigns over the years, and his uncle's second in command. By early 1169, the army of Amalric I, king of Jerusalem, is finally expelled from Egypt. Saladin's uncle Shikur is named vizier of the Fatimid Caliph Al-Adid, which gives Nur ad-Din de facto control over Egypt. Okay. But just 1 month later, in March 1169, Shikur suddenly dies after a short illness.
Wow.
Without his right-hand man, Nur ad-Din's influence in Egypt is threatened. Al-Adid senses an opportunity to strengthen his own position and quickly appoints Salah ad-Din without waiting for a decision from Damascus, thinking that a young vizier with no political power in Egypt will be easy to control. However, the 31-year-old Saladin proves to be more than what Al-Adid has bargained for. The young vizier takes advantage of the Fatimid political system, and through clever tactics, he gradually installs his close family members in key government and military positions, which enables him to consolidate his power enough to overthrow and dissolve the Fatimid Shia Caliphate just 2 years later, in 1171, thus founding the Ayyubid dynasty. Saladin can now concentrate on strengthening Egypt as a bastion of Sunni Muslim power, with himself as governor in the name of Nur ad-Din. He revitalizes the economy, establishes civic institutions, and greatly improves education by building a law college in Alexandria and a vast number of schools all over Egypt, giving school administrators and teachers good salaries, which attracts many scholars from across Asia and Europe, turning Egypt into an intellectual powerhouse of the 12th century.
Nice.
He abolishes tolls for Muslim pilgrims who cross the Red Sea and pays compensation to Mecca for any loss of income.
And I'm glad they point this out, because you don't really hear, I guess, this kind of stuff about, because you hear about, how, I guess, advanced, like, Europe is and stuff like that, but you never, in this, I guess, area, you don't really hear much about this stuff, and it's very cool how he was building schools and all this stuff to kind of, like, further his people and, all this stuff, because they're at war with the Christians, and, like, you have to advance yourself and learn, if you want to kind of keep up and be able to, fight on the same level, as your enemy. So I like that they're kind of, like, pointing out, what, not just the battle, how they point out what he's done and stuff like that, and giving us a base of what Saladin is is kind of all about and what he's done. I just think that's really cool.
Shrewd move at sea and pays compensation to Mecca for any loss of income. A shrewd move that makes him popular among the people and also makes him a patron of Mecca. Saladin transforms Egypt into a salient against the Crusaders by creating an entirely new army, loyal only to him, and starts rebuilding the navy to protect Egypt's coasts. Military forays soon follow to secure and expand the borders, first against Nubia, where hostile remnants of the Fatimid establishment still persist. Then into Libya, where Ayyubid armies push west to Tripoli and expel the Norman occupiers, although Saladin never manages to consolidate his authority west of the province of Barca. Most importantly, Saladin turns his attention towards tightening his grip over Hijaz and captures Yemen, thus gaining control over the Red Sea and its vast maritime trading potential, which immensely increases Egypt's commercial wealth. By all accounts, Saladin is actively building an empire, which creates friction with Nur ad-Din, his master in Syria. Tensions rise and almost result in conflict, but then Nur ad-Din dies suddenly in 1174, probably of a heart attack. In the ensuing power vacuum, his 11-year-old son, al-Salih, cannot fill the void left by his father's death, but Saladin can, and he now sees before him a grand vision. He can unite Egypt and Syria for a holy war against the Christian invaders. He proclaims the need for unity and jihad as reasons to intervene in Syria, and his claims are not without merit. By controlling the Red Sea, or by reconquering the area south of the Shorbak Castle, Saladin is already recognized as the liberator of the Hajj Road. Securing pilgrimage routes from Sudan and Egypt to the holy cities of Mecca and Medina earns him a lot of credibility, and as a result, his arrival into Syria is much welcomed by ordinary people, but not so much by some members of the Zengid dynasty. Nevertheless, Saladin brings most of the Zengid territory under his control, either through diplomacy or military intervention, thus becoming the Sultan of Egypt and Syria. Meanwhile, across the border, King Amalric plans to exploit the political instability in Syria and expand his territory. But he dies of dysentery in July 1174. In Saladin's view, Amalric's death is a sign of God's favour. With the throne passing to Baldwin IV, a mere boy suffering from leprosy, and the Frankish nobles angling for positions in the kingdom, the threat of a major Christian invasion...
It's good. I'm sorry, I'm probably going to refer to this a lot. You can definitely check out the movie, but yeah, actually, I'm not going to refer to the movie a lot anyway, because might might give away spoilers, but anyways, but you guys know, if you guys are watching this and know like the history, then you know how the movie plays out anyway. So I guess it's not really spoilers.
Frankish nobles angling for positions in the kingdom, the threat of a major Christian invasion subsides. But Saladin knows that the time is not yet right to fight the Crusaders, as he must consolidate his position against Nur ad-Din's relatives, who still pose a threat from their bases in Aleppo and Mosul.
But it's smart though, because like before you go to war, against your enemy, you kind of have to make sure that your home base is, all good. I mean, because as soon as you go to war, the people inside your country who want the power you have, they're going to turn against you and use that distraction you have against you. And yeah, he's kind of has to, make sure all's good at home and get all that power and get all that, rally everyone together before he can even really think about trying to take Jerusalem. So, they're definitely a smart guy, and getting his act together before, his act was already together, but kind of getting his everything in place before, he makes his move.
But as Baldwin IV matures, the kingdom adopts a proactive foreign policy. The Crusaders tried to take Hama and Harim, but fail in the attempt. In 1177, Saladin responds by leading a large invasion force into the Kingdom of Jerusalem to counter the Frankish aggression. Baldwin, now 16 years old, despite being vastly outnumbered, proves he is a capable leader, able to unite his nobles against the Muslim threat, and with the help of Reynaud of Chatillon, his second-in-command, he manages to catch Saladin by surprise at Montgizard, due to a rare tactical error by the Sultan. Saladin suffers a crushing defeat, narrowly escaping with his own life, with many of his army killed or taken prisoner.
Damn.
But Baldwin lacks the resources to follow up on the victory, and the Sultan manages to regroup. In April 1179, Saladin strikes back and decisively defeats Baldwin in the Golan region, nearly capturing the king. Another Christian army is defeated in June of the same year, and just 2 months later, an important Templar fortress situated on the pilgrimage route is destroyed. Finally, in 1180, Saladin and Baldwin agree a 2-year truce. But even before the ink is dry, it is clear that the mighty fortress of Kerak will become the next flashpoint. Virtually impenetrable, atop a steep hill, with its 80-meter entrance tunnel and walls thick enough to withstand the battering of siege weapons, Kerak is the home of Reynaud of Chatillon. His fortress sits on the key road between Damascus and Mecca, and from there, the Baron is able to tax, raid, and rob the passing camel caravans of traders and pilgrims.
That was the greatest and most evil of the Franks.
Truce or no truce, Reynaud thinks that Muslims... Truce or no truce, Reynaud thinks that Muslims should not be allowed to pass freely. In the summer of 1181, he rides deep into Arabia and intercepts a major Muslim caravan, strips the travellers of their possessions, and takes many prisoners. Saladin demands compensation from Baldwin, but the king cannot force Reynaud to recompense. Saladin holds a group of Christian pilgrims hostage as leverage, but Reynaud still refuses to free the Muslim pilgrims. In response, Christian pilgrims are sold into slavery. Then in 1182, Reynaud puts more strain on the already delicate truce. The rogue Crusader...
It just kind of shows like that's how leaders, they care more about themselves and I guess their people, because just make the trade, man. Like, release your people, even Stephen, no harm, no foul. But yeah, be stubborn and, not want to just kind of give anything away to your enemy or, I guess show any kind of mercy. I don't know. Yeah, who cares? Let them die, I'm cool up on my mountain here with my little castle. Like, and like, I guess, Baldwin, he doesn't really have power, I guess, I guess he doesn't have power over everything because, he can't tell him what to do. So, there's not just, I guess, one voice in this whole, and, I guess is, he just kind of controls his area. He controls his area. There's not, I guess, solidarity or whatever you want to call it.
puts more strain on the already delicate truce. The rogue Crusader sends troops via the Red Sea, declaring that he will destroy the Kaaba and exhume the Prophet's tomb in Hijaz. But thanks to Saladin's naval reforms, Egypt is well prepared. Al-Adil, Saladin's brother and governor of Egypt, dispatches the Ayyubid fleet. Most of the Christian raiders are captured and executed on the orders from the Sultan. Eulogy.
Can you blame him? I mean, it's not like you can, like, he knows he can't, negotiate, so, yeah, I don't, this doesn't surprise me.
Are captured and executed on the orders from the Sultan. Eulogies of Saladin abound in the Muslim community, as he is yet again seen as the protector of Islamic holy places and pilgrimage routes. And then the tide turns in favor of the Muslims. In 1183, Aleppo finally surrenders to Saladin, who now becomes the mightiest ruler of the Muslim world and the leader of a unified Muslim front against the Latin Crusaders. Exercising uncontested authority over Egypt and Syria, he is supported by the Sunni Caliph in Baghdad and is recognized as the Lord of Arabia and patron of the holy cities of Mecca and Medina. But most importantly, ordinary Muslims that Saladin sought to bring together are jubilant that Islam is again united. The news of Saladin's conquest of Aleppo shocks the Crusader states.
You just knew that if Saladin could conquer the city, then their country could be swept.
Saladin can now direct his vast resources to put pressure on the Kingdom of Jerusalem almost along its entire border. A devastating raid into Christian lands is followed by several probing attacks on the fortress of Kerak, testing the resolve of the Franks and putting strain on their resources. To make matters worse for the Crusaders, the tragic life of Baldwin IV is over. The king's final act was to try and secure peace by sending Raymond of Tripoli to negotiate a 4-year truce, which Saladin readily agrees to, because he has problems of his own with the Zengid ruler in Mosul, who is forming a coalition against him. But the leper king's successor, Baldwin V, is a sickly child, and he dies just a year later, triggering a succession crisis. After a period of political turmoil, the throne passes on to Baldwin IV's sister, who in turn crowns her husband, Guy of Lusignan, as king of Jerusalem. But the new king is not able to control his vassal.
Oh God, it just makes me think of the movie. And if you guys know if you have seen the movie, you know what I'm thinking. Like, oh God, not this guy.
King of Jerusalem. But the new king is not able to control his vassal nobles. Then comes troubling news from the south. In December 1186, Reynard of Chatillon once again violates the truce. He overruns another rich caravan, slaughters and imprisons many Muslims. Saladin immediately dispatches an envoy.
Yeah, how can you sign a truce when, like, I guess the guy who was, your counterpart over there and wherever doesn't agree to it? I mean, I don't know, man. It's like Saladin, I guess, thinks that, you're the leader of Jerusalem, kind of controls everything. Apparently not. And I guess the Frankish, king over here, and does his own thing and can't be reasoned with, and seems like he's kind of ruining it for everybody by just getting greedy. And I mean, I guess that's just how the way things were, back then, so I don't know. Just seems like I don't know. The Christians here are just like begging to be invaded here. I mean, they're surrounded. Like, you can't. They have to see how much Saladin's getting power here, So you don't think you'd want to be able to kind of like don't poke the bear, Like, why would you try and pee him off, Because Saladin just needs, because if Saladin has a really good reason to invade you, that would be a good way to rally his troops, and then you're just in trouble, man. You think these guys would want to play nice, just to hold Saladin off, but I guess not.
And imprisons many Muslims. Saladin immediately dispatches an envoy, demanding the return of hostages and treasure, threatening the truce breaker with vengeance. But Reynaud, resting on his laurels behind the walls of Karak, refuses to even receive the envoy.
Oh my god.
Upon hearing of this, Saladin finally loses his patience and swears that he will take the life of Reynaud with his own hand. His anger, beyond words, beyond bounds. In early 1187, Saladin gathers his generals in Damascus to draw up plans for a major invasion. Messengers gallop to all corners of the state, urging action, vengeance, a war of liberation and annihilation.
Yep, here
The words
comes.
jihad and Jerusalem are on the lips of all Muslims who answer Saladin's call. Saladin leaves garrisons along the border to protect the northern flank and begins raiding Christian lands. During one of the raids, a chance encounter between a Muslim cavalry advance guard and a Christian contingent of 130 knights, 400 cupoles and infantry at the springs of Cresson ends in disaster for the Templars and Hospitaliers. Heads of knights on lances and prisoners chained to horses are paraded in front of Tiberius.
Wow.
The calamity at the springs of Cresson is a wake-up call for the Christians, who quickly mend old rivalries and unite in the face of the conflict that is coming. On June 26, 1187, Saladin regroups his troops and marches towards the River Jordan. His army numbers around 30,000 and is divided into three wings, with Taqi ad-Din commanding the right, Kukburi commanding the left, and Saladin himself in the centre. On June 27th, the army reaches the River Jordan and makes camp in a marshy area near Lake Tiberias. Raiding parties are sent into Christian territory to ravage the area and set the stage for the invasion. Some 25 kilometers west, a Christian army some 20,000 strong encamps near Sephoria, a highly strategic location because of its rich water resources. On June 30th, Saladin sends a contingent north to block the town of Tiberias, and then challenges the Crusaders by moving his main camp closer to Sephoria, some 10 kilometers west of Lake Tiberias. But as neither side takes action, Saladin decides to make the first move. On July 1st, he sends scouts to monitor an alternative road on his northern flank that connects Sephoria and Tiberias. Later in the day, reports confirmed that the Crusaders are not advancing on either route, and on July 2nd, Saladin takes the initiative. He marches east towards Tiberias with most of his infantry, a cavalry contingent, siege engineers, and their equipment. By late morning, they reach Tiberias, where Raymond's wife is staying, and they besiege the town. Not long after, Muslim troops breach the wall, and the town is seized by nightfall. Raymond's wife barricades herself inside the citadel with her guards, and sends messengers urging King Guy to send help. Back west, plumes of smoke can be seen in the sky above Tiberias, and when news of the siege reaches the Crusader camp, King Guy holds a war council to debate what should be done. At first, Raymond of Tripoli makes a persuasive argument against marching to raise the siege, insisting that the Christian army has a strong defensive position at Sephoria and should stay put.
Interesting. I expected them just to run out there, but then again, that could be foolish because that the enemy might be expecting that and be ready to ambush you. So I mean, at least they're kind of thinking about strategy here and thinking about what's the best move, because by the time they get there, they're probably too late anyway.
But the Count's cautiousness is met with accusations of cowardice and treachery, mainly from the Templar master, Gerard de Ridefort and Reynaud of Chatillon, who push for a more aggressive stance and put pressure on King Guy with strong political, military and diplomatic arguments. Persuaded, the king sends a herald through the camp to sound the call that the army will march to the rescue of Tiberius at dawn. And on July 3rd, the Crusader army makes way. They set out with Raymond.
This has disaster written all over it because these guys are already watching the camp, and so it's gonna be too late by the time they get there. I just think an ambush is coming, man. I think the well, I guess the guys who want to rush into action, I guess, got louder voices, and I don't know, maybe I could succeed here, but I don't know, I don't think so.
July 3rd, the Crusader army makes way. They set out with Raymond of Tripoli commanding the vanguard. King Guy leads the centre, where the Bishop of Acre carries Christendom's greatest relic, the true cross, on which Christ is believed to have been crucified. Balian of Ibelin commands the rearguard, where the Templars and Hospitaliers are stationed. King Guy orders the men to march with haste, planning to reach the besieged town by the end of the day. But as noon approaches and the sun rises across the clear, cloudless sky, it becomes apparent that the day will be extremely hot. There is no breeze, and the scorching heat slows down the column. By midday, the army reaches the next watering point at the village of Tehran, only 1/3 of the way. But as they press on, there is no escaping the sun and the thick dust raised by the marching troops. It becomes clear to King Guy and his officers that they will not reach Tiberias in a single day.
No.
As the column moves away from Tehran, detachments of Saladin's fast-moving horse archers appear from nearby hills and begin harassing the Christians, cutting off their line of retreat. The Crusader infantry closes ranks to protect the cavalry against hit-and-run attacks, but the number of casualties in men and animals begins to rise. The day wears on, and the constant harassment and sporadic clashes slowed the Crusader rearguard down to a...
This reminds me of that battle that's not yet, that we covered in the Third Crusade, where basically Saladin did the same thing, to, who was it? Was it Richard the Lionheart, if I remember correctly? And, of course, in that series, Richard, eventually, his men eventually kind of took charge and were the aggressive ones, and it worked. And so, but I don't know about this, because it's hot and they're moving slow, so it means probably already tired. So I don't know if they have the energy to kind of turn on him here.
Crawl. They become separated from the rest of the army. Fearing the loss of his elite shock cavalry, King Guy orders the centre to stop to allow the rearguard to catch up. He relays the message to Raymond, ordering him to halt the vanguard. But as the entire Crusader column gradually gets encircled by the ever-increasing number of Saladin's horse archers, it becomes clear that they have fallen into a trap. After quickly taking Tiberias, Saladin had time to return, leaving only a small garrison to block the citadel. And with his main contingent, he is now blocking the road. With nightfall fast approaching, the exhausted Christian fighters, slowed by thirst and hemmed in by Muslim forces, cannot fight their way past Saladin's fresh troops. King Guy has no choice but to order his men to make camp where they stand.
Wow.
Not far from the king's tent, the main Muslim contingent also encamps for the night. But the night ahead will be a difficult one for the Crusaders. Their column stretches some 2 kilometers and it's not protected by any natural terrain features. Muslim horse archers continue to pepper the camp throughout the night. Skirmishers clash with the Crusaders and set tents on fire along the camp perimeter. Unable to rest, and with their water supplies dwindling, the smoke and the heat from the fire drains the energy from the Christians. Come morning, things quiet down.
Yeah, I was gonna say, they're gonna harass them in the middle of the night, and they're gonna be tired. And apparently, their water rations ran low, so they're probably thirsty or hungry. And heck, if I had no sleep, they're probably stressed to the bone and been harassed. They're tired, and you just know that Saladin's got his men ready as soon as sunrise, daylight. Man, they're charging that camp. There's no cover for them, and they're probably gonna be well rested, because I'm sure while all this night stuff before harassing them, his main army was getting rest, and this just has obviously slaughter written all over it.
Down. Saladin waits for the heat to rise and to see what the Christians will do. Crusaders, now without any water and tormented by thirst, have only one aim: the village of Hattin, where there is a water source. They make way across the valley, keeping the same formation of 3 squares, with infantry shielding the cavalry. Saladin's troops set fire to the nearby brushwood, sending choking clouds of smoke on a westerly breeze towards the Crusaders. And with the sun beating down from the clear sky, the Christians push on towards Hattin, desperate to reach its water well. To prevent this, Saladin sends Taqi al-Din's wing galloping to block the valley, determined to fully encircle the enemy and not allow them to quench their thirst. He especially wants to wear down the knights and their cavalry, aware of just how dangerous their frontal charge is. Taqi skirmishers ride in close, then hit and run to test the flanks of the Christians. Horse archers then unleash volley after volley onto the Crusader column.
Damn.
Exhausted, thirsty and disheartened, the Crusader infantry starts to break away from the mounted knights. They disperse and flee, with a large group heading east towards a hill called the Horns of Hattin, and another group fleeing north towards the village of Nimrin. Seeing the fleeing troops,
man, they're already dispersing, man. I think the only chance they had, it seems like, is just to unite, you know, but now that they're all seem to just be like dispersing in their own direction. I mean, it seems like chaos, man, and you know, against an army who's, you know, like Saladin's men are obviously all for him and they have a game plan. I mean, I don't see any way of any kind of victory, you know, for the Christians here. I think Saladin they can just kind of like pick off like little groups at a time because they're not one united front. The Christians are, so yeah. Saladin, he basically has them at their mercy right now.
Muslim riders open gaps in their line to draw out the enemy infantry. King Guy and his officers realize they are doomed unless they can break through. But the Muslims charge the rear of the column, and the Templars and Hospitaliers become heavily engaged, forcing Guy to halt for a second time to prevent the cavalry formations from breaking up. But in the front, Raymond of Tripoli is already edging away from King Guy's cavalry formation. As he advances, the Muslim riders begin opening another gap in their line. Raymond decides not to sit and wait. He gathers his knights and charges Taqi al-Din's cavalry. The Muslim riders let the galloping Christians pass through, showering Raymond and his men with arrows as they retreat from the battlefield. Back in the smoke-filled valley, the Christian knights are dying. Guy orders the cavalry to move towards the Horns of Hattin through a gap already created by the retreating infantry. He knows that there are shallow pools of water at the top of the hill, and hopes they are not dry. Meanwhile, on the hill, Saladin's troops close in and engage the Christian infantry. Exhausted, the enemy infantry barely put up a fight, and they are quickly overwhelmed.
Yeah, I mean, they're more worried about water than they are the enemy. I mean, they just want to drink, so that shows you just how weak they are. You just imagine going out and like running for hours without water, and then how thirsty you would be, and yeah, it's like you can't continue on unless you get a drink. So you know, so you have a well-rested, strong army against you, man. There's just no way. There's just no way.
The Muslims then turn towards the King of Jerusalem himself. Throughout the incessant close-quarter fighting, Christian knights gather around to protect the true cross as they retreat towards the hill. But at the top, they find no relief and no water. King Guy rallies his knights and raises his red tent to provide a focal point, but to no avail. Muslim troops push up the slope and engage the Christians. In the melee, the true cross falls into Muslim hands. Seeing this, the surviving Christian knights rally and charge downhill to retrieve it, pushing the Muslim line back. But they have no fight left in them, and soon begin to take heavy casualties. Finally, King Guy orders them to surrender. The knights dismount and collapse on the ground. King Guy is also found on the ground at his tent, utterly exhausted, barely having enough strength left to hand over his sword. Saladin's army has won a great victory. King Guy is captured along with many nobles and knights, among them Raymond of Chatillon. Saladin orders that ice water be brought and offered to the king. Then, according to Imad al-Din, the king, having drunk some of it, handed the cup to Renaud of Chatillon. Whereupon the Sultan said to an interpreter, "Say to the king, it is you who give him to drink, but I give him neither to drink nor to eat." By these words, Saladin wishes that it be understood that honour forbade him to harm any man who has tasted his hospitality. And with that, he swings his sword and strikes Renaud on the neck, thus fulfilling his oath to kill the truce-breaker. But more importantly, the large Crusader army that is destroyed at Hattin cannot be replaced.
Kind of expected, I'm glad it's a little bit of accuracies, from the movie here. So it's kind of neat because I never really I guess I have, you watch movies and you haven't really seen the history of it, and then then you see and you watch the history of it, like, oh, cool, okay, maybe there is, a lot of those movies, you think that it's just all, fiction, you just think, they took something like, okay, this, Team A took Team B city, but they don't really, a lot of the time they don't use, I don't know, accuracies that happened within that battle for that movie, they just fill in the blanks, they just fill those things with random crap. But here they actually, there is a little bit of, what's they call it, a little bit of accuracy. So I find that really neat.
But more importantly, the large Crusader army that is destroyed at Hattin cannot be replaced. Without it, Christian castles, towns and cities are now defenceless. By 1188, only Tyre and Antioch hold out to spur Europe to embark on another crusade. But that is a story for another time. It is worth noting that we mainly focused on Saladin's military achievements in this video, but there is much more to the man who was admired by his European enemies and loved by his fellow Muslims. Saladin was a courageous Muslim leader whose firm foundation in the religion and its prime values led to his commitment to the Islamic cause. In just 12 years, he united Mesopotamia, Syria, Egypt, Eastern Libya, Western Arabia and Yemen, using his skills in diplomacy and administration to piece together this divided region. His scope of vision was that he gave each situation its due attention and weight, and he never broke a bridge of diplomacy or peace initiative with his opponents. The power or wealth he acquired never spoiled him. He was a man of restless energy, geared to serve his goal in driving the invaders out of Muslim lands. We highly recommend you check out the sources we used for this video to learn more about one of the greatest princes of Islam.
Alright, hold on a second. Saladin's victory at the Horns of Hattin paved the way for further Islamic inroads into Christian territory, precipitated the fall of Acre, Java, and Gaza in the city of Jerusalem, along with some 50 Crusader castles. Yeah, we ended up basically covering a lot of that in the Third Crusade, but yeah, Saladin, obviously a great leader. I mean, leaders that can, bring, a squabbling, area together as one are just great leaders. And, you have to have great values, and you got, have a lot of respect from, your enemies, or I guess, not your enemies, but, the different areas that, I guess, like as Muslim, that their area, because, they share the same religion. In the same, ways of life, and you bring all those places together that, share that same kind of philosophy, you're pretty great, and if you can get all those people together, you can do great things. And they pretty much, squashed the Christians who didn't really have, they weren't seen eye to eye. I mean, there was a disconnect between the two leaders of Jerusalem. I don't know what the other one was, that kept looting, Muslim land or whatnot. And so it's always a theme, of course, the big leaders always triumph over the squabbling, enemies. And it's always, you always I think it'd be interesting to kind of see like the big leaders at their peak against other big leaders at their peak, but obviously they're not at their peaks in the same time periods. And just like, we saw like Hannibal, it would be cool to see him go against like, like Caesar. And, you know, obviously we got, Saladin win against, I guess, Richard the Lionheart, but I don't really know much about him. So I can't really say much about that, but I just know he's a big name. But anyways, guys, I hope you liked this video. Like and subscribe. Please and thank you. It helped me out a lot. And oh yeah, they didn't really they didn't show the siege of Jerusalem, which I get really wasn't needed because spoilers. The movie had a big battle of the siege of I guess that's spoilers, siege of of Jerusalem. And Jerusalem was just outnumbered. I mean, they put up a fight, but there was just there's just too many. It was just a matter of time. I don't know. It didn't say it here, but apparently there was. Yeah, I did say it. I think in the beginning of the Third Crusade. They didn't slaughter all. They didn't slaughter. The Christians inside Jerusalem. They had a. They made an agreement and they let everyone free. If they had surrendered the city, they would let everyone free and wouldn't, touch them. But yeah, it showed there was no need to because there was no really battle. I mean, the movie there was a battle, but I'm pretty sure there probably wasn't even much of a battle though. In reality, so and yeah, definitely really cool. I honestly was not expecting this at all. I thought we were just seeing like from the movie just the battle of Jerusalem, like that, them showing up and then like the ins and outs of the battle to take the castle, but didn't just obviously this didn't even go down at all like that. And so it was really kind of cool to see basically, like I said, spoilers, the battle in the desert right there that they showed where everyone was getting tired and stuff, that was brought up like very like briefly, and like the ice to drink and the ice to cut, it was brought very briefly in that movie, Kingdom of Heaven. And so like I said, that's what I was saying. It was kind of cool to have that part, but that was just a small part of the movie when and in reality that was basically everything, because that was their whole army died and there was nothing else. There was nothing left to defend Jerusalem. And so yeah. But anyway, I said hit like and subscribe, guys, and I hope you guys continue along in these journeys with me. I don't know what I'm doing next. I'm not even gonna try and speculate because I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm sure I might end up jumping around to a different time period. Probably will be. So don't expect me to be in any kind of certain thing. So like I said, love you guys watching me. You guys are amazing. I really appreciate all the help you guys give me in the comments and little tidbits of information. You guys always like to comment below. You guys are a very smart bunch and very cordial and with each other, and I really appreciate that. And yeah, just thank you for coming along the ride with me. And I hope you, like I said, I just end up going around in circles and continue the journey with me, like I already said. But anyway, guys, yeah, like and subscribe, and I'll definitely catch you guys in future videos. This is really, I'm really glad I did this one. It was very kind of cool to see like Saladin's, his greatest victory, because all I have is the few battles from the Third Crusades. But anyways, guys, like, subscribe. I'll catch you guys in future video. You guys have a great day, great night. I'm out of here. You guys are amazing. Love you. See you later.